live on audio, live on video. You can start whenever you right now.
Yeah.
How you doing? Welcome to Out of Creative. We have a very special show. I'm here with Pej The Interventionist. And what he does is he goes out and he finds people who need help in mental health, treatment for drug abuse. And everybody knows I'm an advocate for mental health and keeping your mind and your spirit intact. So thank you for letting me come to your studio and do my show. We have here Pej.
Thank you. Good to be here.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Jamal?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm happy to be here. And I just want to get a little bit about your background and what got you started in being an interventionist and how rewarding is it and some of the pitfalls and some of the times that may not work out the way you plan them to.
Yeah.
So where you from, Pej?
So I'm Persian, but I was born in Germany and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah for the first portion of my life. Growing up in Utah was a little bit rough because I was Persian, dark skin. Most Persians are not dark skin. They got like olive skin. But growing up in Utah, I had to gravitate towards other people that were outcasts. Mm-hmm. And there was some bullying going on for my nationality and my skin color. So, but we came here to California when I was 15 and I've been here ever since.
Okay.
Orange County, Los Angeles. I've lived in one or the other or both at the same time, pretty much for 3 decades.
So, are there any experiences that you experienced in life that got you on this journey to want to help people get into recovery?
So, I work in the field of addiction. I've myself am an addict and an alcoholic in recovery. I'm recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I had some trauma. I think most people that end up coming in that get to be hard addicts or alcoholics have had something that's happened to them in their lives to where the trauma that they have had, maybe they were experimenting with drugs, but the trauma that they may have had, including myself, will take them down a dark path. It doesn't seem dark at first. I accidentally, I had a car accident when I was 17 years old. I was behind the wheel. I hit someone. That person lost their life. So they lost their life, and I ended up drowning all my anguish and pain and sadness and sorrow in alcohol and drugs. Not to say I wasn't already using. I already was using before that, but I took it next level, which over a period of time started making me get into a lot of trouble. And I found my way into the system, both juvenile detention facilities and adult jail. And I had been a drug dealer throughout my life, all throughout, like from 18 to 30, I was selling drugs. From 30 to 35, I was no good at selling drugs anymore. I was using my own supply. I was a homeless man. I got sober. Well, I got intervened on by family. They tried to help change my life and help me understand my life wasn't working for me, and I just wasn't ready. I was so caught up in my own bullshit and my own style of living, and so I ended up going homeless for a while. I had this false sense of pride and ego, and by going homeless and when I was living on the streets, things happened, like some realizations where I got to change my life. Your family doesn't talk to you anymore. What is wrong with you? And so I ended up going to a recovery home. Mm-hmm. It was a very structured house run by a man that I met 5 years before that I wanted nothing to do with when I met him at 30, but at 35, almost 36, he opened the doors of his house to me. And he was a real one. Like the way this man operated, he was a former heroin addict. He was a former bank robber that had never been busted, a wingman in all these bank robberies. So for me, those things sounded like my type of guy. There was power struggles with me and him at first because he would call me out on some stuff. But then over a period of time, I started to develop this deep sense of respect for him. And he would take me to people's places that their families would call and say, my son is caught up on drugs or my daughter is this. And so I'd go and watch this man meet with the families first, but then afterwards meet with the individuals, which I didn't realize that he's intervening on their lives. That's an intervention.
So did you stay in intervention at first or did you choose some other paths before?
Well, that same man, he was just doing interventions not as a professional interventionist. He was just a person that was already working in the field of addiction. So he had a KDAC and he went to school and was doing drug and alcohol studies many years before. So he was my counselor in a house that he owned, and
Okay.
and he lived there. So seeing him do the interventions was an idea in my mind of, I think I want to get in this helping field. But that man also encouraged me strongly to go to school. So at the time, like I'd sit in his groups and I'm getting sober and I'm doing well for myself. But when I'd sit in his groups, he'd tell me, he'd pull me aside in his office and say, "Hey, you got a lot of heart, you got a lot of skills, but you don't have enough skills in being able to sit in this setting and do it effectively without hurting people's feelings." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, I encourage you strongly to go back to school and study drug and alcohol studies." And I said, "I don't want to go to school."
Well, let me ask you, how sensitive are addicts and alcoholics when you go in to try to help them out?
Well, it depends. I mean, during that time, I was kind of a newcomer myself with like 3-4 months of sobriety. But I sit in a group and somebody, but they'd be sitting outside talking about entertaining the idea of doing heroin again. Then they come sit in group and sitting pretty like they don't want to, like, "Oh, I'm going to stay sober." And I'd be like, "What? That's not what you were saying outside." So I didn't care about how sensitive they were. I went straight for the throat. Like, "I'm going to call you out and I'm going to pull your covers and all that." And so my guy, Sia, God rest his soul, pulled me into his office one day and he said, "You need to learn to have empathy." And I'm like, "What does that even mean?" I don't know what the word, it sounds like sympathy with an M. So I was like, "What does that mean?" And he said, "You should go to school." So I go, what do you mean? Like, "I'm not down for school. I didn't do good in school." He goes, "You're sober now. Try it out." So he encouraged me to go to Saddleback College, which I did, and signed up for an ethics class. And over a period of time, I was iffy about continuing school, but he kept pushing me. So I did all the drug and alcohol studies and finished top of my class. I'm glad he sent me because there was a group facilitation class that I took where I learned how to be able to conduct myself in a group without tearing a person down. Being able to meet people where they're at, talk to the sensitive ones, talk to the ones that are more driven, talk to the silent ones, being able to get people to open up, all that stuff. So I did that. And once I finished, I started working in treatment. So before I became an interventionist, I worked in an adolescent facility named Newport Academy. And then I started working in adult treatment. And I worked in a lot of adult treatment. I worked in lots of centers. I did a lot of different things. I was a case manager once I finished school, which was interesting because I was 5-6 years sober, managing other people's cases, a guy who couldn't even manage his own case years before. And then I did everything from program director to program manager to admissions. I did everything in treatment as far as working in treatment, except for therapy. I wasn't a therapist.
What is the fulfilling part about working in treatment? Do you get any fulfillment?
A lot of fulfillment, especially, when I worked on the front lines of treatment just as a tech, that's just a person that's basically taking them to meetings, running a few groups, having a couple of one-on-one interactions. When I became a case manager, it was a whole different animal. At this point, everything I learned in school, I'm now doing in my position at work, getting paid better than my get well job. I got a caseload. I got to meet these people from the day they come in through detox, build a biopsychosocial with the therapist, put it all together, write it up, and then watch this person's case go from detox to residential to PHP to IOP to OP to putting them in sober living afterwards. One of the most rewarding things of being in treatment is watching a person's process come from broken to, a person that has no hope in the world or may not even make it because they're either going to go back out and relapse or they go to lots of treatment, right? But watching the ones that go through the process and then go get their lives back. Some of them end up becoming people that work with me in treatment. Some became therapists, some became case managers, some became treatment center owners. I also did a lot of business development over a period of time. I was doing marketing for treatment centers. That was a position that I worked my way into outside of the stuff I'd done before because, let's be real, living in Southern California is not cheap.
Oh,
not
at all.
I needed to make more money. So I started to work for treatment systems and centers on a national level where I became a business development guy. I would go and find people that need help ethically. Let's just be real about that. Ethically, the right way. Mostly guerrilla marketing, boots on the ground, going to hospitals, making relationships with therapists, with attorneys and things like that, and putting people in treatment. And during that time, I was training to become an interventionist too.
For people who are looking for treatment to go to, what are some unethical things that you've seen that people should look out for when trying to get their life together?
Well, I mean, there's so many different things that I've seen over the years that are unethical. You know, when somebody's trying to dangle a carrot and tell you, let's go to treatment, I'll give you this much money. That ain't right.
What is that called?
That's body brokering.
All right. Can you explain body brokering?
Yeah. So, like, you know, there was a time when mostly treatment was cash pay. People would put up their houses to be able to put their kid in treatment. This was before 2010. Then we started watching, you know, certain things take place like, well, for one, there was insurance was covering a lot of people to go to treatment, right? And so if people have very good insurance policies, that to some treatment centers, I mean, it's a higher paying policy, right? When people when they go to treatment, they're getting paid $30,000 a month, sometimes $60,000, $90,000. This could be over almost up to $100,000 for one patient to go to treatment. So you started getting these people that were like so-called hope dealers, right? That were basically sometimes middlemen, like a third party, like a person that is somebody that's going to be able to get the patient and put them into treatment, and along the way entice them in certain ways by giving them, you know, ideas of here, it will pay you to go get better, right? Like, I'm here to give you hope to change your life, and on top of that, I'm gonna give you some money. Keep my number. I'll put you in this treatment center. They'll put them there for 20 days. They keep in touch with them. Then they get them out again by saying, here, you don't like that place? Don't worry. I can give you more money. I'll put you in another place. But first of all, hate to tell you this, you got to start from zero. So we're going to give you some drugs. I'll give you some money, and then we'll put you here. Usually they offer them a few $1,000s, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, as well as a place to stay and some drugs. Now, just like in the underbelly of the beast, that style of living, that's kind of mafia style, right? That stuff. They don't always show up with the $2,000 to $5,000. They might show up with like $500 and tell the guy, let me give you this for right now. Go here, stay here for this amount of days. So they're basically body brokering. They're brokering this person's body.
Shipping them around.
It's human trafficking, right?
Well, let me ask you, do you know anybody who passed away due to body brokering?
I know many people that passed away as a result of getting caught up in that rat race.
Yes.
Because they're not really in recovery. They're basically being passed around. They're part of a scam. It's still a dirty style of living. That's dirty money, whatever's being passed. And there was, hundreds of millions of dollars. So even the body brokers who were once brokered a lot of times are so caught up in that world that it's easy money. So when it's easy money and it's dirty money, what's going to happen? They relapse, they die, they overdose. And on top of that, it's really interesting. Like some of these body brokers, they stood out from a mile away. You'd see this motherfucker straight up on his Facebook page, sitting on a Ducati in a mink, wearing like these shades, like all swagged out, right? And you're just like, you just know, like that dude right there.
He's doing the wrong thing.
He's just coming up on a bunch of free money, and there was plenty of them, and they got indicted by the feds, and the treatment centers got indicted by the feds, and there was a lot of raids that went down. And I've always known to be amongst my colleagues one of the good guys.
Upstanding.
As much as like I used to duck and dodge the police when I was younger, I had no problem working hand in hand with law enforcement over the last decade, letting them know who the bad guys are. You want to know why? Because too many of my friends have died. Too many people were neglected of the opportunity to actually really taste and be in recovery. And so by people doing some shady shit and putting these people in places, body brokering was at an all-time high. It's still around. Right? It still happens. But during that time, like 2015, 2016, and all the way to like 2020, wild, wild west. Trump actually signed a law called the ECRA law in 2018 that said you cannot individually put a person in treatment for money.
Got you.
So there's people that are business development reps that are doing it ethically, that work for a treatment center that get an annual income. Like they're basically on salary, and so they're making a certain amount of money per year, but it's no heads on beds. Their bosses or the treatment center can't say, you need to send us 7 clients a month. It can't be talked like that.
Okay.
That's unethical.
I personally worked in treatment, so I know the difficulty in kind of getting people in treatment based off of what type of insurance they may have, things like that. What are some of the difficulties you have as a outreach person, interventionist?
Yeah.
When a family calls you and they say, well, for lack of a better, Josh is in trouble. We need you to come out and talk to him. How difficult is it to break through to somebody and get them to commit to changing their life?
Well, as an outreach person or a person that was doing business development, the patients were different in comparison to being an interventionist where a family's trying to call me to have their loved one go to treatment. Example, let's say like when I was working in doing admissions for a treatment center, the phone calls were coming in, and as an admissions counselor, sometimes we are talking to the people to let them know perhaps you should get help. As a outreach person that was working, let's say, in the field with therapists and attorneys, or attorneys, a lot of times people get court ordered, so it's not hard to put that person in treatment. They know they got to go to treatment because the court is ordering them to, the judge is ordering them.
They have to go.
Right, they have to go. So there's no questions asked. That patient's going to, I'm ready to go. Right? Insurance or no insurance, however they want to go, they're going to go to treatment, right? As an interventionist, this is a whole other arena. Now I've got to, there's so...
All right, let me ask you. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Can you give me a good story about like something that was difficult that worked out as far as you being an intervention?
I'll give you 2 simple stories. There was one story where it was a 50-some-odd-year-old man that was an alcoholic, that his family was worried about him. He lived out in Bellflower. They asked me to come. I did a Johnson model intervention, which is a traditional writing the letters. The whole families write the letters. We got everybody all piled up into this living room, including their 90-year-old mom, and she's sitting there. She has her letter in hand. And all of a sudden, the brother went to go pick up his brother, and they come around the corner. And I guess the brother along the way told him, you're about to get intervened on, which he didn't need to do all that, right? Yeah. But he did. And so dude came into the living room. We're all sitting there. The whole family's sitting there. And he comes in, drunk as a skunk. And he just says, so when do we leave? Do I need to pack a bag? And I'm sitting there as an interventionist thinking, like, I didn't have to do nothing. But the mom was like, wait a minute here. I didn't even get to read my letter. So everybody sat down. The whole family sat down, and she read her letter, and he got in the car. I didn't even say nothing. That was the easiest intervention I'd ever had in my life.
What's a hard one?
A hard one would be, there's a few that stand out to me, but so sometimes I find these people that come from well-to-do families but have decided to make the drugs more important than anything that's important in life. Some of them are parents, but they've decided to let their kids go, and some of them decide to run the streets. Some resort to places like Skid Row or like Chicago, on the mean streets of Chicago.
And
like,
they don't have to be there.
They don't have to be there. That's not where they're from. That's not what they were raised to be. But so for me to be on the search for those types, there's been times like where I turn into PI, like a straight up private investigator. I got to ask questions. I got missing person signs, and I go around. It's really hard to looking for a person in them tents and shit like that. That's like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, sometimes I will have this intuition within, especially based off of hints and clues and things, people that have seen the person, or even people that tell me where that person could probably be found, where I'll get this idea in my head that I'm going to find this person. I just feel it. I feel I'm going to find this person. Series of events can happen. Sometimes the person gets incarcerated. They try to call their family. There was one in particular that would call his family wanting an Uber or a phone hooked up or things like that so he could still go do his get down. But as an interventionist, now I'm intervening on your life. And even though I haven't been in front of homeboy, in front of him, like to be able to tell him, hey, your life's not working. I'm here to help you. He calls me. I get them, I help them, and then I get them into treatment. The ones that actually get off the streets and get into treatment and transform their lives, that's another rewarding thing. So I can see that happening in treatment when I work in treatment, and I can see it happening as an interventionist. Also, as a person that has his own recovery homes, there have been a few times that somebody that I found through, let's say a family finds me on my YouTube channel or whatever, through my website, and so they have me intervene on their, I go all over the country, right? But I get that person, I bring them out, I clean them up, I put them in detox, I put them in treatment, they go through treatment, they come into our house, one of my homes, which are very, very, very recovery based, like we're no nonsense, right? But to watch a person go through that whole process, I mean, I've seen a few, and I've seen a few that are disappointing, like the one that took 10 and a half months from Chicago. I got him out here finally. He came, he stayed for a month. He had ulterior motives. He pulled some shenanigans. And the other day, when I took him back to Chicago to check in with probation, the second he checked in with probation, he came out and he goes, "This is where we part ways."
Oh man, that's
He would rather be in 9-degree weather than be in this sunny weather right here, working on himself and getting his life together and be reconnected with his family. He'd rather go out there and not get high or get high.
When has it been an interventionist become dangerous?
It can be dangerous a lot of times.
Has anybody ever attacked you?
Yes. I had a guy that tried to attack me. Luckily, his brother's gotten away. It was a Vietnamese dude. He was in full-blown meth-induced psychosis. He came at me, but he didn't like me being in his house. He tried to jump. If his brother wasn't standing there, I would have caught one.
Was he big?
No, he was a little dude.
But he knew karate?
Yeah, he knew something. Because he came at me. He came at me. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then, there's also, you have to understand, some of these people are unpredictable, especially the meth users. If they're already in a state of paranoia and some stranger comes into their life and it's trying to interrupt whatever process they got going on, and they're armed, they got guns, I mean, listen, I've worked on a case for 5 months down in Skid Row. You been to Skid Row?
I've been past it.
I'm going to have to take you down there. I mean, it's like a third world country, man.
I've seen.
I put myself in places where it wasn't even the individual that I was intervening on. It's the motherfuckers around me that are like, "Who are you?" But luckily, I know how to conduct myself. Sometimes I would have to dress up like the street people, and sometimes I dress up like a straight up cop and make them think I'm a cop so that they stay away from me. A few of them don't even care if you're that. Like there was a guy who I had to try to intervene on within this building it was this hotel down, an old converted
Is it like
hotel.
Abandoned?
No, this was actually emergency housing. So down in Skid Row, they've taken all these old hotels and made them into emergency housing. They're transitional homes to be able to get into like Section 8 homes and things like that. But they get people out of the tents, put them in these homes. They got to be qualified. They have agencies that oversee them, and then that. So anyway, I would stand out front of this hotel just waiting for the dude to come and go to go eat, and I couldn't find him. But all these other people around on the street, because a lot of them are just posted up out in front of these hotels morning, noon, and night. They'll be like, "Who is this guy? Are you a cop?" They would ask me, "Are you a cop?" I'm like, "Far from it. I'm down here looking for somebody. Don't worry about me. I won't worry about you."
And just that tone might get you in trouble, huh?
It could. It depends. I mean, if I was to be living and working this job in a fear-based mentality, I'm probably going to bring some negativity to myself. I'm not bulletproof. I'm not invincible. I'm not saying that something can't happen, but so far so good. Like I kind of go into it with courage, and I also pray every single time before I go and ask God to guide me.
God is a major factor. What's your how important do you think God is to a healthy recovery? Because I'm a God-fearing man, so I think that's an important question.
Well, as I mentioned before, we all carry trauma. The people that are in recovery, mass majority of people have trauma, and if it's unresolved, that's one thing. And a lot of people turn the idea of God off in their mind. Some people are from different denominations where something may have happened where they just don't want God in their life. For me personally, I stopped believing in God when I was 17. I mean, I renounced God. A kid died that was in a car accident, and I ended up in juvie. And so I turned my back on God. I thought there's no room for a God like that in my life, taking that kid's life away from him without him even knowing it and putting my life in this type of jeopardy, right? So I stopped believing in God for a long time when I was 35, almost 36, and I got into recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I started buying into this idea of God being all encompassing, all loving, a warm, beautiful God that loves me, as opposed to what we learn in lots of religions where it almost seems like it's a punishing God. I'm also, I studied God.
Mm-hmm.
I studied many religions throughout my life. Like I want to make sure that I can't just say I'm right about what I think. If I'm a hardline atheist or agnostic, which I was both at some point in my life, I didn't want to be certain of it unless I studied stuff. So I would study religions to see if maybe I want to subscribe to one of them, and I didn't want to subscribe to none of them. Coming into the path of recovery, you don't have to be in any religion to believe in God. God is not religion. God is spiritual. So for me,
Religion is just an organized way for you to connect with God
that's right.
in a certain form of fashion. Like
Sure.
however you decide.
And that's why I
to get
respect
there.
religions, man. If I've gone to Catholic, Christian, Mormon.
Yeah.
I've gone to synagogues. I've gone to mosques, and just to investigate how everybody's connecting to God in religious settings. But for me, I just like to get on my knees and just say thank God for another day. I wouldn't be where I am today, Jamal, in my sobriety if I didn't have this strong relationship with God.
I have a strong relationship with God too. I think it's super important.
Absolutely.
I personally believe that the trials and tribulations you go through in life are ways to make you get closer to God. If you don't, you just keep spiraling out of control.
I couldn't agree with you
I
more.
want to tell you something. Well, I don't drink. I had decided I'm not going to drink.
Mhm.
So I stopped. And this lady down the street from me, she says, Jamal, come here. I got a gift for you. Now, I used to love Heineken. Like, that was my thing.
Yeah.
She said, I got a gift for you. Now, I already said I'm not drinking anymore.
Yeah.
And I walked in her door, and she said, the box is heavy. It was one of them 28?
24 pack or something.
Yeah, of Heinekens.
Yeah.
And I looked at her, and I said, I can't take it. I'm not drinking. I don't drink anymore. I stopped.
Mhm.
And she was like, oh, my God, I just spent, this was, expensive box of Heinekens. I said, I'm cool. You save them for when you have a party or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not interested. And when I went through this situation, I felt like somebody would say, well, the devil was trying to tempt you. And I say, nah, I don't think that. I said that was God trying to see if I'm going to stand on what I said I was going to do.
As in, like, not drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was seeing if he was testing my ability to change
Yeah.
at that particular moment.
Yeah.
That's just something I always put that. I like that story because it's true. And I had dedicated myself to getting more into my spirituality and connecting more with God.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm not going to drink. I don't want to drink. I need to have a clear mind. I want to be focused and I want to be right all the way around. I want to change my life 100%. Like, I want to be a new guy. I don't want to be the same dude anymore.
Mhm.
And then she offers me this beer, my favorite. I don't drink liquor or none of
The
that.
Heine.
Just Heineken's. And she's got the biggest case of Heineken that you could buy for retail. And I'm like, that was God.
Yeah.
He sent that to see.
Mhm.
He's testing me. I really think that's like divine intervention.
Sure.
Yeah, so,
Most def.
what were your drugs of choice?
Well, you often hear it in a lot of recovery circles. What do you got? Truth of the matter is, as I liked all drugs, I did a lot of drugs. The only drugs that that I ever touched was PCP. I wouldn't mess with that.
Why?
Because I saw in health class in junior high school a video that they showed us of this dude on PCP that was so out of his mind that it was scary the way he was acting.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I never want to get like that. However, that didn't keep me from sniffing glue and gasoline and weed and alcohol, and then later coke and crack and freebase and methamphetamine was my demise. I got into heroin, opium, all hallucinogens from LSD, mushrooms, mescaline. I did a lot of drugs. I also did a lot of drugs for a lot of reasons. I did it because A, I loved the way they made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
B, had a lot of trauma that I was trying to mask my emotions and not being able to work through or feel. And C, I was slinging dope. So when I'm slinging dope,
It's available.
it's right there. I gotta have product knowledge. I gotta be able to.
So you got to be able to say, listen,
This is the good
this
shit.
is the good stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of different reasons that I did it. There was obviously Ice Cube would say back in the day, and when he was in NWA, don't get high off your own supply.
Yeah.
Like that's a standard rule.
Scarface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a standard rule amongst people that sell dope.
Yeah.
But I had a dope habit before I had a slinging dope habit. So I had a realization at 17, if I want to do this all the time, I need to have a lot of it. And I can't afford it on my own.
What are the best things that happen in your life after getting your life together? And how long did it take? Now, in hindsight, like, did it really take that long to get your life together once you decided to get your life together?
It's a really good question. A lot of people that come into recovery say you got to work the 12 steps to have a spiritual awakening to be able to have that psychic change. I believe I had a psychic change before I even started working the steps. I was in my mid-30s. I realized my life had not been working out with me. I realized that when I put any substance in my body, it depletes me spiritually from having any type of connection to a higher power. It blocks me from God, from my fellow man. So I believe that God put people in my path to be able to inspire me, encourage me, and empower me to learn to be the best version of myself. It didn't take but very long within the first year of me to know my life is changing for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And by staying on the path and staying sober, that same counselor used to say some powerful stuff, very easy things. He'd say things like, if you stick around, you're going to move mountains. And, just to hear that little term, it was like, wow, that's powerful, man. Like, I have been stuck in this egoic thinking of the drugs, if I sell lots of them, are going to make me a powerful person and have this big, beautiful life. But how was selling drugs adding up or doing any good for me when I was living out of my car and I had none of the material items anymore when I got sober other than the car, right? So a very empty person was becoming very full within the first year. And by sticking around and staying sober and practicing these principles in all my affairs and going to meetings and getting sponsees and working with a sponsor and going to therapy and all the different things that I needed to do, I was able to and continue to be able to work through all the great things. And I believe in manifestations. I'm a manifester. Like, I know in my first few weeks of sitting in my recovery home, I look around and think, so this guy's got all these beds in this house, and he probably rents this house from somebody, and he probably pays a certain amount of money for rent. And so then he's got food that comes in here, and these people's families pay him. And I wonder if I could ever open up a house like that. And sure enough, over the years and manifestations, I worked for a treatment center that had a sober living that I lived in for free at their house. They were paying me. I was overseeing all these people. I had very strong recovery, so I got to be able to transmit my strong recovery to some of these guys. Some of them stayed sober. The mass majority of them didn't stay sober because they just weren't ready. Watched 200 men come through the house within 2 years. 8 of them stayed sober. 3 of them ended up really staying sober, right? But over a period of time, I went from working for a place to opening a place with some other people in LA and then opening my own places. And that's the manifestation. That's one of the most beautiful things that's happened for me.
You said something very powerful. I hear in a treatment about the 12-step program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How important is it to run through those 12 steps?
I believe the 12 steps, it's important for not just the addict or alcoholic. I believe if the 12 steps were worked by humanity as a whole, we would have world peace. I believe there are people in Codependency Anonymous, that when they work the 12 steps, they can overcome their codependency. Quite freeing, right? I believe that for addicts and alcoholics, if you really break down the 12 steps and see what their purpose is and why there's more people that get into recovery that get their lives back as opposed to smart recovery or Dharma recovery or refuge recovery. Not to discount any of those programs, but you don't see those growing more massively and more people staying sober as opposed to the 12 steps. The 12 steps, like it's about developing a relationship with a higher power. It's about looking at your inventory, writing it down, putting it there. Who's hurt you? How have you hurt other people? What are you in fear of? And then going and making amends. One of the most powerful things, the reason people get their lives back in the 12-step world is when they go make sincere amends and they don't continue to keep harming people and then they give it away. It's about the service. If they do the daily inventory, the prayer and meditation, but giving it away and continuing to serve, I believe in humans live better when they're in constant service.
Start checking yourself.
Yeah.
I'll use myself as an example again. Being that I've become more in tune with who I am and trying to reach a different level of spirituality and like be one with God. Sometimes I try to catch myself if I get angry.
Yeah.
I'll say, yo, chill out, calm down, like just relax.
That's an awareness.
And I get better results in life. Not reacting a certain way. Did the 12 steps help you with matters of like that? Like
absolutely
checking yourself.
Absolutely. It does give you an awareness, but doesn't mean that I completely change as a person.
No.
I mean, I mentioned therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the 12 steps were my therapy for a lot of years, but I got into some relationships and a few of them, we had to go do some couples therapy. And then I went back to doing some individual therapy. And there's some shit that's so deep rooted within me and my core that the 12 steps isn't going to necessarily completely make me change.
Happy you brought up the word therapy.
Yeah.
How important do you think therapy is for not only people in treatment or people trying to get healthy, but just the population in general?
Everybody needs therapy. Therapists.
I agree.
Therapists needs therapists.
I agree. I'm an advocate for therapy.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it was important when I found out what you were doing that we sit down and go through some of these things and hopefully inspire somebody who, if only one person sees and they're like, I want to get help.
Yeah.
Because you go from a guy who's been getting high in his younger years to 30-something to having all of these beautiful things in a family.
Yeah.
And all these things right now. The Prince guitar.
Yeah.
It's doable. It's manageable. Mm-hmm. And we're all going to go through trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
But those are only they're like weights.
Yep.
They're like being a bodybuilder.
Yep.
Those trials and tribulations are weights, and you got to keep pushing that weight till you push it off of you, and then you're stronger.
Absolutely.
Pej, can you tell us how to reach out to you?
Yeah.
If somebody's kid or brother or sister or something is going through a tough time.
Yeah. The easiest ways of getting a hold of me, I have a website called Pej Interventions.com.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a YouTube channel called Pej Interventions. People find me a lot of times through social media like TikTok, Pej Interventions.
I see you on IG.
Yeah, IG too. My IG is that one's called Pej Interventions, but soon I'm starting this new podcast called Primary Purpose with Pej.
Mm-hmm.
We are changing it from Pej's Recovery Corner to Primary Purpose. We're launching next week. People can always call me at 310-596-9356. I get a lot of phone calls every single day. The best way to get a hold of me if your loved one is struggling, rather than call and just expect me to answer, text me, tell me the situation. My son, my daughter, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my brother, my sister, doesn't matter. Drugs, what kind of drugs are they on? This is what's happening. What can we do to help? And then I'll make sure to set up a consultation call.
If you're anywhere in the country and you want to get into treatment out here in Southern California, and let's say you get out of treatment and you have sober living facilities.
Yeah.
what would be the requirements to get into one of your sober living facilities?
There's a few requirements. One is to come in with a drug and alcohol free attitude and wanting to stay sober. We don't want people that are going to come in and disrupt our milieu and want to come in and talk about glorifying drug use and things like that. We want you to be sober, plain and simple. We don't want you to be on Suboxone. We want you, if you're already on buprenorphine, we'll get you on Sublocade. Doctor's orders, we'll go through some kind of a taper process so that you get off of it completely. Be expecting to be in a 12-step environment. Like we go to meetings, we get sponsors, we work steps. There's going to be study hours where people have certain times of the day that they got to study. We're structured home. Like we don't mess around. People can't just get up in the morning and like lay around in bed and things like that. That's not the way our house operates.
Okay.
People got to make certain meeting counts. We have a high success rate and a low relapse rate because people know what they're walking into when they come in through the front door and they read the contract. So there are high expectations, but there's a lot of good stuff going on over there. The men's house, the women's house, they run like train stations. Like we've got people that run the homes that are graduates of the homes. They've gone through the homes, so they carry the culture. They know, they carry my vision. They know exactly what I want. They're an extension of me. Really good homes, really nicely put together, very clean environment. There's chores, there's double scrub. The house is immaculate. We could go there right now and walk through the house, and everything's in order.
Maybe one day we'll do that.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll walk through and we'll put it up so people can see what they're walking into, because I think getting people's life together is super important.
Absolutely.
Because I've known too many people to overdose, and that's from personal people to celebrities that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
From my favorite, Michael Jackson,
Prince,
DMX, Amy Winehouse, it goes on and on.
The greats.
Prince. Yes, so this is a serious subject, and I just want to let you know that we commend you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, brother.
And we are proud.
Thank you.
That how many years do you have sober?
Over 17 and a half. I'm well into my 18th year.
So if you can go from you told your age. If you could go from 17 years old, well, younger than that, to 35, wasted, and then change your life and live in beautiful Southern California, and now are a lifesaver, that it can be done.
Absolutely.
Anybody could do it. If there's a will, there's a way.
That's right.
And who wants to live in a tent with crap on the side of it?
Right.
Literally human crap. Nobody wants to live like that. And if you
get your life together, we'll help you.
Please. And can you repeat that number again, Pej?
310-596-9356.
So if there's anybody in your family who needs some help and they don't want to get it themselves and you want to step in, you can always call Pej Interventions. I will post a description. I'll give you the phone number. I'll give you the YouTube channel and his social media so you can see what it's all about. I think this is a very important topic, and I'll be back with more topics like this. I'd like to thank Pej for letting me come through to his studio and doing another Out of Creative, because Pej is a creative. He's creating ways for people to save their life. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks.
How you like that?
It was good.